Welcome back everybody, this is the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage. You are looking at my Necchi Supernova. This is the two-toned Italian zigzag marvel that was for sale in the 1950s, and I am making this video to show you guys how I'm going to reinstall the motor. Now, the last videos took the motor unconnected the motor bracket so I could get to it. This particular motor design has a little cap. You heard me, something fell there. It has a little cap here, and I've cleaned the commutator, so we're going to go back. This is kind of a good place to mention to you guys to always pay close attention to when you take something off. And when you're going to put it back, make sure you put it back in exactly the same order you took it off. And it bears mentioning that a lot of times there are small parts, particularly around motors. If you're disassembling the whole motor, like the drive shaft here, there are a lot of times there are spacing washers used for spacing. Now this little piece, this little cap, which kind of makes it rather convenient way to get to the motor commutator. This cap is made of sort of like a hard plastic, okay? Presumably to act as a form of insulator. So I'm just going to set it right here, which is where it was. And then I have the two small, I have one for each hole, these little screws. And each one of these has a small washer. And that washer sits, see if you guys can see what I'm doing. It's really small. This washer sits between this screw and the plastic, presumably so that you don't damage the plastic. And of course, when you're working around a motor, always be extra careful because you don't want to drop screws and small parts down into the motor, because then you have a whole nother project of getting them back out again. So I'm just putting these back in. Making sure I don't cross thread it, right? There we go. Just be patient. It's usually when you get in a hurry that unfortunate things can happen, because some things you just want to take your time. And you can see I've got the washer back on the screw there, and going to be reinstalling this motor and the belt. Again, I took the motor out because I basically wanted to clean it. It had some extra soot on it. I've even cleaned, not perfectly, but I've cleaned off most of the excess off the outside of the motor. Some people believe that the motors can cool themselves better. I don't know how much you would need on there to really make an impact. But anyway, we got our insulator back on. And again, as I've reiterated many times, you'll notice that when I've got these screws, as I turn them, as soon as they stop, that's snug enough. Don't over tighten and torque them, all right? It's not so much, I'm not so much worried about hurting the screw, but this plastic piece will appreciate it if you don't torque it down like you're putting on a lug nuts on a car wheel. Okay, so we've got this back on. What else have we got here? I've got a bunch of screws, and I've done these machines enough to remember that these screws are for the clutch washer. It has two instead of one. I've got two different screws here that take, this is how I'm going to get the outer shell put back on. And then these are my big bolts, and I'm going to be using these next. Where's my, my belt? Now, the belt is not the original belt, I don't believe. It is in remarkably good condition, and there's no cracks. I've even, I've bent it and twisted it, and I mean, not abusively, but I've been checking it out. There's no cracks. This belt is still good. There's no reason to replace it just because. And they're not that hard to get to. If you need a replacement belt, always check yours, because it's easy to ignore belts when they're behind, when they're in machines where there's a cover and you can't see them, like some of the earlier machines. And these belts are not expensive. They're not proprietary. It doesn't need to be Necchi brand. It just needs to be the right size. And you can get these at most sewing vac stores. If they don't have it in stock, that's not a huge surprise, but they can normally get one for you. If you have your old belt and you know it needs replacing, remember don't throw it in the garbage, because you need this to measure for the new one, right? That way you don't have to guess. You can just tell them what size it is. And let's see. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to, the first thing we're going to do is get the motor put back in. And you guys will remember I've got my motor power lead cord, which is actually sitting behind us here. It's not very long, so be extra careful. Don't be overly aggressive. Now I'm going to turn this, and my cord is in good shape. It's nice and pliable. That's not always the case, but it's in reasonably good condition. This cord is, so I'm very happy to see that it's not needing replacement. Now, you guys may recall when I took this motor out, I was mentioning to you that, of course, the brushes are on this side of the motor, so I had to really remove it. I wanted to inspect my brushes. I'm glad I did, because it was time to replace them. They still had some life left, but I wanted to replace them. They're easy and cheap to do. We've got the motor out. Let's go ahead and take care of it. We'll go ahead and get it done. Really a good idea to do that. Now, I see and hear a little bit of, there's a cam here, a cam arm, in a place that I might want to put a little bit of oil. So I'll go ahead before I put the motor back in. You do not, let me emphasize, you do not have to remove a motor to do your oiling. There's a way to get to it from underneath, and that's how I would normally oil it. But let's see, I have it right in front of me, so why not, right? But don't ever think you got to remove the motor to oil the machine. That would be a really bad design. Fortunately, that is not what we're dealing with here. And I've got my oiler. Got the windows open today, which I'm just so pleased to see lots of sunshine, and see if I can get any real light in here. You guys can actually see what's going on. There we go. I'll just put a little bit in there. Why not? Now, these motors are pretty high quality. Any motor can have problems and need replacing, but basically these motors are relatively they're a lot like some of the Japanese motors. This one, I believe this motor may have been made, I'll have to look and see. I'm not sure if it was made in Italy or in North America. But remember, guys, when you're putting this motor back in, it fits in. It's a little snug. It's designed to go in there. Don't let that bother you, but it is somewhat snug. Now I want to make sure that I have my motor bracket sort of in place here. Let's see if we can get you guys, oops, a little bit more light. It's you can get in here, even with my large hands. I can get in here. It's not as easy as a rear-mounted Singer motor, no, but it's okay. It's certainly doable. And the motor has kind of a tilted position. It's kind of funny in a way. And my cord's looking okay. I'm just checking with my flashlight, make sure I don't have my cord pinched. And I don't. It seems fine. It seems happy. Now, this bracket, of course, you guys will remember, has two holes, one here and one here. But they're more like slots, okay? They're not very wide, but they do... I'm going to put a little bit of oil on my bolts here. They have a little bit of movement, and you need that movement because it's very important to be able to slide the motor within it's a short range of motion, but you want some range here because that's going to allow you to get the positioning to get your belt on properly, and to also properly tension your motor belt. Now, you guys may recall this bolt, I think I was using a different screwdriver because it's kind of an oddball place. I think I am going to use, for at least part of this, my kind of little L-shaped screwdriver here. It's trying to remember which one I used. I don't know if I can get my fingers in there or not. My fingers are too big. Let's see. Oh, maybe I think I used my little ratchet from my screwdriver tip set. I'm trying to remember. I had to set this machine aside working on some other things, and now I'm back to work on it again. And now I can try to hold this in my hand, but there's a chance I might drop it. And just trying to get my fingers in there. So we'll try it with this little ratchet and see if that helps. Sometimes if you're not sure how you're going to go about something, try different things. You know, you may have different tools at home. See what you've got and see what is most practical for the purpose of your machine and whatever you're doing to it. These tools, I didn't just kind of go out and get them all at once. Over the years, I've kind of assembled things that I thought would work. Some work better than others, and you know. You may have something in a toolbox at home. Let's see if I can do some of this by fingers, but even that's not a great solution either. By the way, when you're taking this motor off, another option you have is to remove these two bolts, and the motor comes off the bracket. But again, you're going to be in similar position. Neither set of bolts are easy to work with here, so you just kind of have to make do, and it's doable. I got it out. I can get it in. It's just, again, not difficult. You kind of know what you need to do, but you really want to be patient because you've got this bolt trying to block you from getting to this bolt. Then, you know, and this one that's further back is obviously the toughest one to try to get to, but I'm getting it. It's just slow. Again, be patient. Being impatient will not help. I guess that's true of a lot of things. And the oil I put on the tip of this bolt certainly is useful. It's a help. It'll help it to turn a little more easily. Neighbor has a wonderful wind chime out there, and I'm enjoying hearing it now that it's warm enough to get the windows open. It's such a nice time of year to have fresh air coming in. Okay, now I'm not going to torque this bolt down really heavy. Ironically, as it goes down, you can see I'm using this little screwdriver. As I get it to go further down, it's going to give me a little more space to get in there when I do need to tighten it. I'm not going to tighten it all the way because remember, I want to make sure I can move this, move it on its slots. Now I'll grab the other bolt and get it going. This one you should be able to, and if you have smaller hands it's even easier, you should be able to kind of get it going just with your finger and thumb. Even I can do that with my clumsy hands. Now this, the picture you see here, guys, inside, this is an example of a decision you want to make when you're working on a machine. It's extremely important that machines get thorough maintenance, and all of the parts that you've seen me going over, and you've seen this in many videos and many machines, they're very important. Cleaning the outside of the machine is wonderful for both aesthetics, and you obviously want a clean machine when you're putting fabrics across it. Now the inside of the housing, this right here, you know, it's got some dust. and grime, but it's not hurting anything. It's not an aesthetic issue because it's enclosed. If I have a client who says, hey, they bring a machine to me and they want all that removed, I can do that. But again, this is all about time, and it doesn't really affect the machine at all. So, you know, yes, you can go in, you can take cleaners, you can really go to town on it if you want to, but it is not necessary. I have found that in the past, corrosion is not really an issue on a painted surface like this, but you can imagine anything that's oily actually can help prevent rust. Now, one thing I do want to get is this out of here. I don't want this crud getting on my down on the belt and so forth. So I'm definitely wanting to remove anything that's loose, right? Any kind of loose dust. It's a good thing. You want to get that out of your way. You don't want that interfering with the machine. But when it comes to just the look of something, again, you know, if it's on this inner wall and it's basically not loose dust, it's just probably old oil or grime, who knows. That's really up to you. You have to decide how much time you want to invest in the aesthetics when overhauling a machine, and that's really up to you. My clients typically do not want to pay for the labor of doing that because it's not functional, nor is it, you know, technically it's not aesthetic. You don't see it, and it doesn't hurt anything. So it's not going to cause corrosion. In fact, it may help prevent some. So there's that. Okay, now I have not put my hand wheel back on because I want to, while I'm back here, I want to inspect this wonderful bobbin winder that the Italians designed. Just coming in here, making sure I got any loose grease or grime out of here, getting it out of the way. And most of the motion of this piece is spring-loaded, right? But there is still, you want to check and see if there's any area here that you might want to oil. There's a pivot point. This piece pivots, right? This one here. So let's go ahead and put a drop. And by the way, this is not, what you're seeing me oil, this is not a normal oiling point. This is not part of, you know, when you go to oil your machine before you do a project, don't feel like you have to do this. This is, once I oil this, this is going to be fine for quite a while, okay? Because this is not a part of the machine that's humming, you know, thousands of times per minute while you're sewing, right? That's why you have to re-oil machines, but not here. This is a restoration oil. This is just a long overdue. Thankfully, you'll be happy to know that if you have and sew with one of these. Okay, so we know the bolts. Don't forget, the bolts are not, if you don't tighten them down, the motor will wiggle and it won't hold belt tension because we're not ready to do, tighten them down yet, and we don't want to because we've got to get, we're going to be putting the hand wheel back together and getting the belt back on, and then we'll put the cover on. So let's take a look. You can, if you want, when you push this down, when you pull this down, normally this is going to rest against the hand wheel when I get a rubber tire replaced on here. By the way, most of your tires do not fit this Necchi bobbin hub. So I'm going to have to look and see if I have one that'll fit. If not, I may have to order a special one. That's one of the things they did that was a little proprietary. I'm not a fan of it, but I love the machine so much I'm willing to put up with a little bit of nonsense from them to have a Necchi running once again. Now, let's see. Let's take a look at our hand wheel and hub system. Before I do that though, I'm going to remove this, the top lid, and I'm going to do that because I want to look under here, and I may want to, I can't remember if this lid pulls toward the hand wheel or not, but the hand wheel, you know, everything is very tight on Necchis. They're very close. The spaces, the tolerances are very close on Necchi's, so you don't have a lot of margin of error. But I can see up here, by the way, let's give you guys a view that's a little higher up. There is one screw that holds this top piece. Oh, by the way, there's a little hatch that you open up. That's the hatch that covers the cam space. Now, I'm going to turn this. Oh, it turned. This screw may not have been moved since 1950, 57, 56. Now, I'm going to take, where's my magnet? Oh, somewhere on my light bar I have a magnet. I'm going to make sure this screw, I do not want to lose it. I do not. I really don't want it to go running away from me. Okay. Now let's see. Okay. Now the screw is still in place. Okay, and I've taken the lid off. And that, believe it or not, be gentle with this screw, by the way, guys. Here's a close-up of what it looks like. I didn't take it all the way out. I just loosened it. You can see underneath here. And that's it. I mean, and then it hinges. There's a little, like a little finger that the lid connects to. And that's it. That's all that holds it on. So don't lose that screw. Okay, now let's take a look at what we've got here. We have old oil and dust. What else do we have? And I'm going to show you guys sort of the way this mechanism looks. Okay, so you can see here when you want to open, this is the follower, right? This piece follows when you have a cam in place. Here's the hub. This is the hub for the cams. When you want to insert a cam, you got to pull the follower, I call it a finger, away. So when I push here, and the manual will show this to you, it pulls the finger back, which gives you space to either insert a cam or remove a cam. And you definitely want to have this back. If you don't, you could damage the mechanism or your cam or both, and both you and the machine will be very unhappy. Okay? So if you get to a point sometimes where you say, gosh, this cam won't go in, you want to kind of stop because there's a reason. These machines are were very logically engineered, okay? And you say, well, gosh, why do I have to turn this to open the cam? Because it's spring-loaded. The pressure of this follower, this finger, is spring-loaded. And that, remember, there's no brain on this machine. There's no computer to do it for you or to tell you what to do. That's what manuals are for and things like videos like this. Now, while I have the lid off, I want to take my lint brush, which I had once upon a time. Here we go. Now, I want to basically, you don't typically get a lot of dust or dirt in here, guys, because there's not a lot of places for it to come from. I see a little bit. I'm just going to kind of pick it. I like these lint brushes that I can kind of just get in here and take a look and see if there's anything that could be. You don't want to put any oil on a machine until you've gotten all the dust and dirt out, right? If you put oil on top of dust, you're going to have basically dust mud. It'll be a mess, and again, not something that will be helpful to you. Okay, what else have we got here? Let's see a little bit of grease from this little area here. Now I mentioned you guys that these mechanisms are spring-loaded, and they are, but they also have pieces that move against each other, metal pieces, right? And who knows when the last time this was oiled, okay? So I don't have any dust in here. So I'm going to look at pivot points. You say, well, how do I know where to oil? The manual may or may not tell you this. There is one hole in the top of this machine, and that hole is primarily for this area here where the drive shaft is, and that's all well and fine. but we also want to take care of this area, right? And you might say, well, I don't know if I'm going to use cams or not. Who knows? That's okay. I have no idea. In fact, this machine did not come with a full set of cams. I think there's a couple, but I don't even know if the cam wrench is included. And if it's not, you know, I don't know. A lot of people may not ever use the cams. It may not interest them. It may not be useful to them. And if that's the case, then you might think, well, why go to all the trouble to, you know, why not just ignore this? Well, because you don't know. Who knows? It could be that someone will want to use cams, and I'd like it to be ready for them. And so as long as this mechanism is functioning and moving, I'm feeling okay. Now they will have to get, you know, make sure they have the right tools for the cam, and they'll need the manual to know how to use them. If I have the cams, I will include them. I have a set of Necchi cams, but they don't go to Supernovas. Those of you who think about brands of machine, again, Singer is the only company that used the same cams for like a long, long time. Most companies were constantly fiddling and fussing around with their designs. That was kind of the norm. And they did this largely, and they spent a lot of money doing it at times, but they often did this with the intention of you know, innovating. They could tell their customers, hey, we have something new, it's improved, and so forth. And so you can imagine, let's see here, see if I can get you guys a little bit more height. Got my tripod here. Now, let's turn down here. Give you guys more of an aerial view. You can hopefully see a little bit better as to what I'm doing. But basically, you say, well, how do I know? Maybe the manual doesn't tell you. You don't need to turn the drive shaft here. What you do want to do, well, you can, is with the cams, you'll notice I'm simply watching. Where do I see metal pivoting? Right underneath here, there's a little shaft where this pivots. I see where metal touches, and I see where, you know, basically there are linkages where metal is moving. And when that happens, I just make sure that I oil where the metal is moving against metal. And I know that sounds kind of a general recommendation, and it is, but these machines were they were designed to be maintained, like so many things back in the day. So many mechanical devices today are designed to either die or, I think my needle is unhappy. That's okay. Just wanting to get some oil work down in here. Okay, let's see. Now, if I come back later, if I discover that I didn't get everything lubricated, I can always open this back up. Taking the lid off of this thing is quite simple. I just showed you guys. It's pretty, not much to it, you know. It's got this one bolt, which again is why you don't want to lose this bolt. In fact, I don't know if it's held in with a washer or not. Sometimes they are. So to reinstall it, remember there's a little spot here, and we're going to put it right on this, I call it a finger, but it's basically a place to sit. Get my small screwdriver, and I believe we're dealing with metal to metal here, but again, do not over tighten. It's not necessary, and you just take risks you don't need to with something vintage unless you want to have to hunt for a replacement, and I personally do not. I've had to before when something was missing, but okay, now, okay, it's snug, good, you're good to go. Okay, so we've gone underneath, right? And now you can see when I move this, you can see the follower pulling back, and that'll allow you to get your cams in. If you use cams, you don't have to. A lot of sewers never did. But they were sold as a, you know, they were an upsell, and it was part of the razzmatazz, and they do work fine. Some people like them, but a lot of people don't use cams because a lot of people don't they don't use decorative stitching in their sewing. Now, as soon as I say that, many of you will say, "But I do," and it's great if you do. I admire you if you do. But and you can see I've already already got my paw prints here on this. I'll have to wipe that off, but I'm not worried. It's just oil, dirty oil. It'll come off. Okay, so we should be ready to reinstall coming up. We've gotten this off, we've got it oiled, we've got the motor back on, and next video coming up, guys, I'll show you we're going to go ahead and get the belt and the hand wheel put back on, and let's see, put the cover back on, and then we'll come over here and I'm going to do some work on this side here. Every machine I work on needs, there's a reason you have access on virtually every machine to your needle and pressure bar. You need to. So anyway, this was the main thing I wanted to show you guys today, that if you ever look at these Necchi Supernova motors and think, oh God, why am I having to mess with that? They're not that bad, right? You want to be patient, and they were designed to have room to lower back down here. They were designed to be removed and installed. They're just, not quite as roomy as some of the machines, but not impossible. So don't let it phase you if you've never seen the inside of one of these. And again, there's a lot more to do. I've got to go underneath and clean and lubricate the underside, and working my way, as I do with all machines, kind of working my way around. But this is what the inside of a Necchi Supernova looks like, and pretty amazing the quality of construction here. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned. The next video I'll show you how we put more parts of this back together, and also getting our belt reinstalled and adjusted for tension. It's not as hard as you might think. Take care, and we'll see you in the next video.